Okay, let's start with drop squats. I like this for athletes, especially for beginners, because it teaches them how to decelerate properly, how to land soft from the balls of the feet and back to the heels. Good for warm-ups as well. Rocket jumps, basically like a squat jump. Use the arms forcefully into the ground and back through the air. Land soft, just like the drop squats. See, from the side, I keep my posture and I land soft. You shouldn't be able to hear people. The faster you throw your arms towards the ground, the faster you can throw it up. Broad jump is for distance. Also, it creates acceleration for athletes. For sprinters, it helps them off the starting blocks and things like that. You're just doing the same thing, but throwing the arms and knees forward. As you see here, my arms go more backwards. And I forcefully throw it forward and drive the knees up and extend the legs out. It's harder to land on the balls of the feet here. You tend to land kind of flat feet or even to the heels. But that's okay as long as you're landing somewhat softly, and you also don't want your knees to come inwards with all that force. Here we have knee tuck jumps, which are designed for more acceleration, quickness, driving them up and up and up. So here I keep my posture. It's very easy to kind of crunch your body forward. You want to maintain your posture. You're basically just bouncing right back up. You're not landing deep on this one. Jumping lunges. Athletes run with one leg at a time, so you want to do a split stance as well, or a stagger stance. Land softly again, only land as deep as you really need to. The arms are working more like you're running with your arms. You can also go for speed instead of height, just quickness. Switch your legs as fast as you can. Then we have single leg lateral hops. All athletes have to go multiple directions. At first, you can kind of pause for safety reasons, and then you can go for more speed. Speed skaters are crucial for athletes because most injuries happen in the transverse plane or rotation. Also, movements happen in rotation in most sports, or any sport really. See how I use my arms and legs kind of like a rudder or like a cheetah's tail for balance? Got to make sure your knee doesn't really go inwards or outwards on this one. This will be great for changing direction. You can switch to two-leg lateral hops. If single-leg things are too difficult, you can act like you're jumping for height. You can pause in the beginning, add some rotation. You see how I'm taking it lightly and I'm pausing to focus. Once you get that down, you can do multiple reps in a row. Now here I'm just focused on the landing part. And then you can just do it quicker like this, changing directions more quickly. Add an object to it, which is more difficult and dangerous. Works on your proprioception and spatial awareness. You can change directions, change speed, jumping at a 45-degree angle. You can jump forward, turn, jump forward, turn. And then you can pick up the pace by just doing it faster, which works quickness and reaction. Here you can add some agility going around the box, changing different directions. Great for athletes. You can even add in a little sprint to it. Now make it unpredictable. A coach can point left or right, different directions. So this is the point of view from the coach. I could be pointing to my left, making the athlete run to the right. This is what the coach would do. This is the view from the athlete. You can make them do two in a row. It's up to you. Or even run backwards. As you see here, make the client run backwards. So here you can tell them to run backwards. You can say it with auditory or you can point. You can say back pedal, back pedal, back pedal, turn, like you're catching a fly ball or a football. Bounding is great for track athletes, just sprinters. Gives you an explosive energy. Skipping for height. This is great for power. I'm throwing my arm up in the air. It's good for single leg power because when we run, we're on one leg at a time. Or you can do skipping for distance, which is great for your stride. It's the same thing as skipping for height, except you're throwing the arm more forward and driving the knee forward. You can see how it helps with striding or striders. Okay, my legs are tired by now. That was a lot of plyometrics. You don't have to do all those in the same workout. It's probably a bit much. I usually do a little bit more reps on some of those, but I was teaching as many things as possible into a video. So typically, the reps would be around 10 to 12 or so. Depends on what you're doing. You don't want to go too high reps, then you're working endurance, unless that's your goal. Maybe you're a distance runner, soccer player, basketball player. Sometimes you can focus on that. But if your goal is, let's say, vertical jump and your 40 or 60 yard dash, something like that, then you want to focus on power. The reps to be a little lower. For body weight, anywhere 8 to 12 actually should be fine. And if you're doing speed skaters, it would be 8 to 12 each side. Now, what you can also do is add weight to your jumps, holding a kettlebell, holding a medicine ball, throwing it up in the air, things like that, wearing a vest. But then you're doing more force and less acceleration. There's a force velocity curve. Picture like a chart. Where that curve is where your goal should be. You mark that curve. So if you're doing really, really heavy squats, bench press, heavy as you can, it's going to move very, very, very slow, right? On a squat, you're going down slow because it's heavy. That means the force is way up and the velocity is way down, which is okay. Depends on what your goal is. You have to understand why you're doing it. How many reps? What's the purpose of the exercise? Why am I doing this movement? How much recovery time I'm doing in between sets, right? So if your goal is straight up velocity for speed and power, move quick, right? As fast as possible. So you don't really need a weight. Depends on which season you're in or which day of the week. Maybe you have a different goal on that specific day. And for beginners, you can also focus on pausing at the bottom. You don't have to jump fast every time. Focus on your landing. Your balls of your feet to the heels, nice and soft. You can pause for 1 to 2 seconds. Once you get that down, you feel comfortable, you can start adding more acceleration, more objects, jumping over, around, and then go to single leg, things like that. I showed some regressions. So first, work on safety and landing, and then progress with acceleration, and maybe adding some force to it, things like that. But remember, the main goal for athletes is really acceleration, power, speed, agility, things like that. So you should build up to that. You want to be able to have fast twitch muscles, elastic energy, where the muscle stretches, reflexes really fast, and that'll make you jump higher and run faster. Building muscle will help build strength, which leads to building power, which is acceleration, and then that can also transfer to more speed. That is why athletes work in phases. They might do, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks of just building muscle hypertrophy, things like 8 to 12 reps, right? And then they start going to another phase. They're doing around 6 reps for a little bit. Then they go 1 to 5 reps for max strength. Now their force is going up on that force velocity curve that I mentioned. After you do 6 to 8 weeks of that, they might do some power where you're leading into power cleans, Olympic lifting, things like that. That's all optional though. You don't have to do that. You can do things like ball slams and wood choppers and hitting a tire, flipping a tire, things like that. As long as you're getting some power, then that would lead into things like sprint and agility and sport-specific exercises. You can do that in phases. Once you get that all down, you've been doing that for a while, maybe years. You can also kind of combine that. Like Monday, you're doing some hypertrophy. Wednesday, you're doing strength. Friday, you're doing power. There's no one right way to do it, but there's a lot of wrong ways.